Hey, gang, and welcome back to another Stephen's Kingdom. Tonight, well, I know at least me and Candace are going to be on here talking about stuff because I already see Candace backstage ready to go. Um, we may have Uncle Bill joining us. You never can tell with Uncle Bill. He might be here, he might not. But in any event, whoever I have on here, we're going to be talking about Storm of the Century, the Green Mile, and Trucks. Now, you're really going to have to bear with me on Trucks because it's been many moons since I've watched this movie. So I'm going to tell you what I do remember about it. And since Candace is well versed in Maximum Overdrive, and so am I think we're going to try to incorporate talking about Maximum Overdrive and comparing it to Trucks a little bit. We'll mix a little bit in there of that. Now I know I've already talked about Maximum Overdrive. However, I think you can never have enough Maximum Overdrive. There's never too much Maximum Overdrive. So we can talk about that again. I know a lot of people dislike Maximum Overdrive, and they say Stephen King was coked up when he was directing it, and that nobody should have ever let him direct a movie. I disagree, however, on that, and I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. Um, I also, please bear with me. I'm still feeling kind of under the weather. I did miss work today. So if I seem to be a little less on the ball tonight, uh, that is the reason. So I hope that you guys and gals will bear with me as I navigate through these films tonight. So I'm planning on tomorrow night doing another Everybody Wants England, and unfortunately, I have not yet refreshed my memory on the final battle, so we're going to have to put that one off. But I am going to attempt to watch Phantom of the Opera from 1989, Adventures of a Ford Fairlane from 1990, and um, Chud 2, where evidently he has an uncredited, blink and you'll miss him performance. So probably what I will do is not only will I cover Chud 2, but we'll also throw in Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare from 1991. So anybody that wants to join me for that, I would love to have you on. Um, and we can talk all things Robert England tomorrow night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday, I guess me and TJ will return finally for the rest of the Creep Show segments that we have been putting off for a couple of weeks. One week it was me, one week it was TJ. So hopefully we'll be able to get to that. Um, Thursday will probably be another Seductive Poison, the Resurgence. With me being lazy and doing a triple threat review show. So Thursday I'm going to be talking about Blood Hook. I'm going to be talking about Blood Rage. And we are going to be talking about Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. So, quite a group of movies there to talk about. So, if anybody wants to come on to help me talk about those movies, if you've got anything that you want to bring up about them or any little tidbits of information, I'd love to have you on. Now, Friday is right now, it's in flux right now because, as many of you know, Jay has made an announcement that he's taking a break from streams on my channel for a little bit. Hence, there may not be a midday with Dana and Jay, but I do have a backup plan in place, but I'm going to wait till I get Candace on here to talk about that because she's going to be a part of that. So there will be a Terror Time tea, and I don't know what movies I'm going to be talking about, I don't know what snack I'm going to make to go with the tea, but hopefully it will be something that everybody enjoys. And then, what are the watch alongs going to be for, if I can find my paper here, what are the watch alongs going to be for this weekend? I don't know about the movie Munchies yet. I think I'm going to go back to that really cool book that Candace sent me, the Death for Dinner book, and pick another one out of there to do because I've been meaning to go back to that. But we are going to be having Blood Diner is on the menu for Saturday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm hoping that Uncle Bill can join me for that because he loves Blood Diner. But if anybody else that wants to join for that watch along can let me know. And also, Sunday will be Multiplicity. Finally, going to do Multiplicity. I hope Candace can join me for Multiplicity. And we're going to have a lot of fun this weekend. In fact, I'm going to try to make sure we have fun all week long. So I'm going to go ahead and add Candace here. Hey,
Hey,
Candace.
Tina, how are you?
Doing okay. I'm getting by.
That's
You
good.
doing all right?
I'm doing good, but I want to know who in the hell hates Maximum Overdrive. I want to know names.
Well, I don't know. I don't know anybody specifically personally, as in people I know, but I've read articles and
I've,
stuff.
I've heard people don't like it. Yeah, I blissful. Yeah,
Yeah, Blissful.
I love that movie so much, and the soundtrack. AC a huge ACDC fan, so like so there's no hate for me.
That movie is just too much fun. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it's
it's
too
been
much
too long since I've seen it too. I need to watch it. It's been a while.
I think I'm going to treat myself tonight, and I think after this is done, and I get a few things done around the house that I need to do, I'm probably going to have to take my soup broth out or my broth for the ramen that had to cook for 40 minutes in the Instapot. I'll have to strain that and do all that stuff, do a couple other things, and then I'm going to sit down and I think I'm going to have nostalgia night and watch Maximum Overdrive because
Sounds
that's
sounds like
big
a plan.
nostalgia. uh, Ben, you are right. You can't expect a movie about killer machines to be serious.
No, that's the great thing about it. I
Uh,
think just the cheesiness.
right.
And I think Stephen King, I think he kind of was embarrassed by that film, but because it was
I
like his
think,
first debut as a director, right?
yeah, I believe so. Yeah. And he also has a small part in it, which
Yeah,
I laugh
my
every
favorite
time
part.
I honey, come over here, sugar buns. This machine just called me an
Yeah,
asshole. It's just,
that's the best part. We laugh
but,
about that part all the time, though.
but yeah. So I guess we can go ahead and get started with these movies. Now, Candace, had you told me that you hadn't seen Storm of the Century at all? Okay.
I've seen probably 15 minutes of it. Um, I think the part where the um, old lady at the beginning with the teeth.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's as far as I've gotten on that. Chris has begged me to watch it. It's whenever you have to have time, I guess is what it is to sit and watch stuff. And usually when we sit down to watch something, it's something new that's come on. But he's talked about it all the time. He loves it. So I don't know why we've just never sit down and watched it, or why I've not ever watched it. Because from what I've seen of it, I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean it's not been as long as Trucks for me, but it's been a little while, and sometimes I'm good about going back and watch it or rewatching these things, and
yeah,
then sometimes I'm like I'm just going to go on memory, um, which sometimes that backfires on me, sometimes it
yeah,
doesn't. Um, but I do remember my mom saying that. And by the way, I don't even know if there is an upgrade of Storm of the Century. This is my DVD of it. Um, I do remember my mom saying that that was her favorite Stephen King miniseries.
Oh, really?
Because we had watched The Stand and she didn't much care for The Stand. I was like, Mom, what is wrong with you? The Stand is fantastic. I mean, The Stand is probably my favorite, but I have a specific fondness for it because
Yeah,
it was the first Stephen King miniseries I ever saw on TV, and
yeah.
that was a big deal
Oh, yeah.
back in what was it, 90, 91, somewhere.
I was really little because I've told you the story about the me having a room full of clowns, and now I think, granted, I think my mom watched it on a rerun. It wasn't like on the debut. It's probably around 92 or 3 when that happened. So, yeah, I think you're right about around the time that it came out because I was really little. I do know that.
Mm-hmm. So Uncle Bill is in here. Are you coming on here, Uncle Bill, or no? Because I'll put the link in there for you. Because Uncle Bill don't have no Facebook anymore. I can't send a message with it to him that way. He always does things that makes it more difficult. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, I'll go ahead and talk about this one. So basically, this I think it is in Maine. Yeah, a small island off the coast of Maine. So these people on this island find themselves, basically cut off. You're kind of cut off when you're on an island anyway, but they're having a horrendous snowstorm. And well, Uncle Bill, you can still come on here.
I don't know anything about it either, Uncle Bill. So the Green Mile, I do.
He says I would, but I've only seen the one movie, Green Mile. Well, Candace is on
Yeah,
here, and
one of my favorites. So
so if you want to, I'll glance back and forth at the chat. I'll send that to you. But so they're basically cut off from anybody and everybody, and this stranger shows up, and his name's Linoge, and I mean he seems okay at first when he first shows up, but once they are really and truly trapped, that's when his true colors show. And I'll tell you one thing, I will never look at the song I'm a Little Teapot the same way ever again
I've seen it.
because because it is so creepy. Because right before people start going nuts, they say, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. And I'm like, oh boy. So you get to where you have a sense of dread when anytime anybody starts singing it, especially an adult singing that. Because when Linoge has his hold over you, that's what you do. And then something bad always happens soon after that. So the the thing is that you start to feel trapped yourself when you're watching this movie because these people can't escape Linoge. You as a viewer can't escape Linoge. You can, I mean, you could turn off the TV, you could turn away, but the movie seems to wrap itself around you. Have you ever had movies do that to you?
Yeah.
Where you sometimes you don't watch them or don't want to watch them or you don't want to keep watching them,
Yeah.
but something keeps you glued to that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
I do that not only with horror movies, but movies that are true stories
Oh,
about
yeah.
a tragedy that has happened or something. I'm like, Dana, you don't need to be watching this. You don't need to be watching this. You're going to be bawling by the end of it.
It's like you get too emotionally involved with it that you just can't. You have to know what happened.
Right. And I've watched movies about people that, and I'm not trying to bring anybody down, but I watch movies sometimes where I've already seen the movie and I know it doesn't end well for somebody. It's a true story, they get some disease, they might get cancer, they might get something, but you know something bad is going to happen. And you're like, oh, it's almost to that part. It's almost to that part. But you keep watching the dang thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know why I do that to myself. And then I'm sitting there just crying away, you know. And so Storm of the Century is kind of like that on a horror level because it's like vines wrapping around you and you get so into it and you can't seem to pull yourself away from it. No
Yeah.
matter what horrible thing Linoge is doing, you you just can't turn away. And I have this other fear of, and people might think this is silly, but I have a fear, number one, of losing control of my mind
Oh yeah.
and ending up in a mental health facility and not being able to get out.
I
You
think
know,
that's a common fear among a lot of people, though.
mhm. Especially people that deal with any kind of mental health issues, whether it be depression or anxiety or whatever, some kind of PTSD. Um, you always are afraid of losing control.
Yeah.
That, and then the men in the white coats are going to come and they're going to take you to the rubber room, and there you'll spend the rest of your life. But I've had a fear of that for many, many years. The other fear is that somebody, like Linoge in this movie, will come and do something terrible to me or my family or other people I love.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what this movie plays on,
Yeah.
is a lot of those fears of losing, because the people on this island, they lose control. Linoge has control,
Yeah.
and he has the control and the ability to cause someone else to lose their mind and go crazy on other people. So it's very frightening. That whole simple aspect is so frightening. Um, so that, in a nutshell, is the movie. This island is cut off from everybody. Leno shows up. He takes over, and they have to figure out a way to fight him, which is present in a lot of Stephen King movies and
Yeah.
Stephen King books, is that either one person or a small group of people have to fight against what seems to be an unstoppable force,
Yeah.
some kind of evil entity. In it was the kids going up against a monster that the adults refused to believe was real,
Yeah.
but they knew it was real. And, there's other things, whether it's aliens or it is some kind of entity like Pennywise or
Yeah.
it, um, even down to more simpler uh, evils like alcoholism, drug
Yeah.
addiction, whatever. Stephen King explores all of those things
Oh
in
yeah.
material.
In one way or another, he's covered a lot of really tough topics and fears and all that good stuff. But correct me if I'm wrong, Dane. I don't know if you mentioned this or not. I could be remembering incorrectly. Now, is Storm of the Century? It wasn't a book at first, right? It
No,
was
I
the
think it
screenplay, right?
Yeah, I think it was an original screenplay.
I thought so. I wasn't for sure because they like released it or something afterwards, right? After the movie or debut or
I
whatever.
believe so, because I think I have the book that is essentially the screenplay.
I think we have it too. I've never read it, but I need to watch this movie. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know why I've never watched it all the way through. I just got to the part where it's, the old woman at the beginning, where Leno just makes his debut, I guess. And but Chris has always tried to get me to sit down and watch it with him, but it just I don't know. I don't know why we haven't, but
And
we
that
need to.
the guy that plays Linoge is an actor. I'm probably massacring his name, Combe Fior. He is excellent as Linoge in this, and I've seen him in other movies, and he's excellent in those too. But as far as playing, um, an evil that just seems like it's lurking under the surface of every person in the film. That's a feat that would be hard to project onto the screen. It would be easy to do in a book, but it's a lot harder to when you're making a movie or
Yeah,
a mini series or
yeah,
something. Tim Daly is also on here because I love Tim Daly. I watched him and Steven Weber in Wings, and they've both been in a Stephen King miniseries now. Um, Jeffrey DeMunn is also in here, and I always love Jeffrey DeMunn. He is an incredible actor.
yeah,
I think he's a very underrated actor as well. But so I'm going to give this one my rating here. So I'm going to have to give it a 5. I know people sometimes think, well, Dana, you give everything a 5.
well,
But,
that's your opinion.
I know a lot of people save those for really, truly outstanding movies. But a lot of Stephen King's movies are outstanding to me. And so this one gets 5 deadites out of 5 for me. Um, and I definitely want to go back and rewatch it again. Uncle Bill says, stop throwing them fives around. Sorry about that, Uncle Bill. I calls them as I sees them, so I call that one a 5. Wings is great, Blissful. Wings is great. Um, I think I have the whole series of Wings because
Yeah,
I didn't watch that when it first came on. I think I watched it when it was in syndication, I
that
believe.
was one I never got into. I don't know why. I just never got into Wings. I watched it while it was on TV.
Right.
I don't know.
So the next one, and one that Candace will be able to talk
Yeah.
about. And Uncle Bill, you still can come on if you want to. We're going to talk about the Green Mile. There's John Coffey, and also one of my favorite actors of all time, Tom
Oh
Hanks.
yeah, mine too.
I could talk for hours
Yeah.
about Tom Hanks. And I think Tom Hanks is a good guy too.
Oh yeah, I do too.
I have never met the man in my life. I would like to, but I have seen videos. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe Candace put it up. I don't know who put it up on Facebook, but there was this video a while back of a married couple who I think they were either going to get married or they had just gotten married and were getting ready to go to their wedding reception. But anyway, who should they run into when they were leaving the church or whatever but Tom Hanks?
Oh,
And
good.
he like took pictures with them and everything. He was just out for a walk or
Huh.
something. They were like
I've
in
never seen that one.
so
No,
I don't know who put that up, but
he seems like a good guy. I mean, but I mean, The Burbs, Big. I mean, just
yeah.
classic line of films that he's been in. That just he's outstanding. I mean, I could talk about him. I'm like you for hours, probably
Well, I even love him.
hours about The Burbs.
Have you seen Bachelor Party?
Bachelor Party. It seems like I have. I'm
That
not.
was an early one for
Yeah.
him. And Adrian Zemed was in it. So, oh man, I could talk about how hot Adrian Zemed is in Bachelor Party because there's one scene where they're having Tom Hanks's bachelor party,
Okay.
and they're at this hotel, and they got hookers and
Hmm.
strippers and all kinds of things, but they got a band, and Adrian Zemed, he can sing. He was up there singing Little Demon, and he had his shirt off and
Oh
everything.
my goodness.
Oh Lord.
That sounds familiar. I might have seen it a long time ago when I was probably younger. Probably seen somebody watching it or something. Sounds familiar, but
I mean,
yeah,
it does have a little more nudity than some Tom Hanks films, but it's funny, and Tom Hanks it's classic Tom Hanks too. He does. Ben Adrian Zmed does sing in Grease too. He certainly does. I like Grease too. I love
I
Grease,
do.
but I
I,
like Grease too as well.
my mom's a big fan of both of them. A lot of people don't like the second one. I always
I
liked
know.
it. I don't know. I thought it was good, but
You got Maxwell Caulfield in that one and stuff. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer.
mhm,
I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with it. But to get back to the Green Mile, I
mhm.
mean, who could not love John Coffey?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
and to answer Candace's question before we get real deep into this, and hey, Batman, by the way, I didn't want to put
Hey.
Batman in there. That was a serial novel when Green Mile came out, which meant
Yeah.
it was in little uh,
Look.
chapter book like things
Mhm.
where you literally had to wait a few months or whatever in between each. And I
Yeah.
think there were six.
There's six of them.
Six
I
of
have
them.
them. Yeah. I have the whole little set I bought whenever I was
And
younger.
I'm actually proud of the fact that I had to wait. Now it's been put in one big book form, and people say, "Well, I can go out and I read it," and I'm like, "No, no, you got to go back and you got to do what I did." And
Yeah.
it's like it just killed me. I was like, "What is going to happen with these people? What's going to happen with John Coffey?"
So you got the cereal as it was coming out. It was
Yeah,
like
as it was coming out, I read them, and I
mid
was just,
'90s, right? Like '97, '96, something like that.
mm, that sounds about right. Um, so definitely, I had to see the movie when I knew it was coming out, um, because there was just no way I wasn't going to watch this movie. Michael Clark Duncan, who
Yeah.
I think has since passed away,
Yes, he
unfortunately,
has. Yeah.
he was an amazing,
Very amazing actor. Yeah.
and I could not imagine anybody other than him playing John Coffey because he played this beautifully.
Yes, he did.
So,
Everybody played it awesome. Everybody had a
oh
great.
my gosh, everybody was fantastic
Yeah.
in this. Um, even oh, what's his face that played Percy?
Percy.
I hated
Oh
Percy,
my
but
God, Rebecca, listen, let me tell you something about him. What's his name? Doug Hutchinson. Whenever because I love the X Files, and he plays Victor or Eugene Victor Toombs, and always thought that his character on there was so brilliant, and he was just an amazing actor. He's creepy. He's the guy that you want to hate, that
yeah,
you love to hate. I thought he was awesome. And then the Green Mile come out, went to the movies and watched it and fell in love with it. And when went through some controversy, do you know about, he married like the 16-year-old girl, and
I guess I hadn't heard about that.
well, he married a 16-year-old girl, and it was like a creep. I don't know. It was just all odd. I try to not think about that whenever I watch these movies and stuff, but just look into it. It's really creepy. So I'm like, dude, listen, you're a good actor. Don't bring this kind of
Don't
attention.
don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. You're great. Because Percy, even though I hated him, it was amazing. Performance. I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, because you know that guy, thank goodness, is not like that in real life, not that evil of
Oh
a person.
gosh, I'd hope not.
Um, but so what we have here for the setup of the story is Tom Hanks plays Paul Edgecombe. He's a guard at this prison, and he basically helps a lot on death row. And this movie is called The Green Mile because the last walk to the electric chair is referred to as the Green Mile in the prison. And so you have all these guys, like I love oh, what's his name? He played the French prisoner.
Edouard Delacroix is the
Yeah.
character's
Well,
name.
I'm trying to remember the
He is
actor's name.
because he played on Sesame Street.
That's right. Yeah.
I can look it up if you want me to.
Yeah, because it's probably going to bother me if we don't figure it out. Um,
I
but
know his name, but I can't.
yeah, it's just on the tip of my tongue, but I'm just um but we get introduced while Candace is looking that up, we get introduced to John Coffey, who seems so out of place in this prison anyway. And he's just so kind, and he's a big guy, but he's so gentle. He's like a gentle giant, what you would refer to as a gentle giant. And I know he calls all the guards boss.
Yeah,
He calls Paul, he calls him boss. And
which is endearing.
yeah, yeah, it's very, very endearing. But we find out that he's there because they've accused him of killing two young girls.
Mhm.
And you know, from the moment you see John Coffey, that he didn't kill those little
Yeah.
girls. But the father of the little girls,
William
believes
Sadler.
he did it. Yeah, William Sadler, who is fantastic. He was
I love
also
him.
on the Shawshank Redemption,
Yes.
uh, which I got to bring up a line from Shawshank Redemption. Y'all, excuse me and my language, but this line always makes me laugh in the Shawshank Redemption. He says, I'm innocent. Lawyer fucked me. Everybody in here is innocent. Didn't you know that? You know, and they tell that to Tim Robbins when he first gets to the
Yeah.
prison, and he's starting to get more comfortable with the other prisoners and stuff. But yeah, William Sadler is fantastic. I even liked him back when he was on Roseanne. I mean,
Listen, William Sadler is one of my bucket list people. He's been on my bucket list for a long. I used to be in love with him. Roseanne, you can't forget Death from Bill
yeah,
and Ted. I mean, that was my introduction really to him
yeah,
back in the '90s as I was a kid, and I was like, man, just
yeah.
awesome guy. I love William Sadler. Anything that he does, I love.
Hmm.
It's really hard to watch him in this, though. I mean, he had to put out a pretty raw performance, especially there at the end, you know?
Yeah, and that had to be rough on him
Yeah.
doing that. Like, it takes every ounce of energy you've got, I would think, to
Oh, I would
do
think.
that.
Yeah.
And there's just so many great people in this. I mean, it's just overflowing
Yeah,
with
definitely.
fantastic actors.
But that guy that plays Edward or Dale, whatever you want to call him, is Michael Jeter.
That's it. Yeah,
Michael Jeter, yeah.
yeah. And he was also, I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff, but he
Mm.
was also in Patch Adams. And I know some people don't
Yeah,
like Patch Adams, and they don't care for Robin Williams' performance in it, but I love that
I've
movie.
seen it once, a long time ago. My mom watched it. From what I've seen of it, it was good. I thought I love Robin Williams though, so
I do
it's
too.
hard not to like him.
But Robin Williams and he and Robin Williams were they were both patients in a mental hospital in
Yeah,
one scene, and I like that interaction
yeah.
between them throughout the film. So we get introduced to John Coffey, and we get introduced to Paul Edgecombe, and we get introduced to Dale and Percy and some of the other
Mm.
guards and stuff. And everybody has their own unique
Yeah,
personality that sets them apart. Nobody is a cookie cutter
yeah.
character in this movie.
Even like Sam Rockwell's character, even though you know what he's done,
Yeah,
he's still
exactly.
a character that you're interested in. You know,
Yeah, you can't trust him, so you're
no,
always, watching what this guy is crazy. What is he going to do next on here?
with the moon pies and
Yeah, and some of the stuff was honestly funny that he did,
yes,
and other stuff was just, especially when you knew what he had
yeah,
done, what this evil thing that he
yeah.
had.
And I think that was a brilliant way to play on your mind as well because his character, as Wild Bill, it you wanted to laugh and you seen humor in his character, but then underneath you know that this guy was an evil monster.
Mm-hmm.
capable of some of the worst. And that's a mind that plays on your mind. It's I don't know, because you want to. There's a part of you that wants to like find humor in him, but you're like, man, this guy's evil. You know. I
Yeah.
like it though. I like that in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't, when he first shows up at William Sadler's farm,
Yeah.
and the way he looks at those little girls,
Oh,
and
it's
then they
creepy.
had the flashes
Hmm.
where, you don't want me to hurt your sister, do you?
It
And
gives me chills just thinking about that. It
yeah,
does.
and you see quick flashes of it. You see him smiling when he first comes to the farm. You
Yeah.
see him looking at the girls. You see him having dinner with the family, and then you get those quick cuts, kind
Yeah.
of, uh, not enough to give you the whole story, but
Yeah.
just enough that
To
you're like,
let you know.
"Oh my god,
Hmm.
this guy is evil."
And it's played so well and presented so well because in real life, that's how these guys are.
Mhm.
That's how people really are, you know. So I think that's what makes it more authentic. And the more authentic something like that is, the more creepy it is. So it's one of the reasons why I like Green Mile. It's just executed so beautifully in all the wrong things, and it just brings it together in a presentation that's just like, man, this movie is it really your emotions are everywhere.
Mhm. Yeah. Definitely, an emotional ride for
Yeah,
anybody that's watching this. But one of the, I mean, it's kind of funny and kind of not. So we figure out pretty early on that John Coffey has a particular talent to be able to cure people. So we find out that poor Paul has a bladder
yeah,
infection that every time he goes to pee, it's like glass
yeah,
going through him. And it's just so painful. He can't make love to his wife. He's just, it hurts to go to the restroom, all of this. So it's kind of funny and kind of startling a
yeah.
little bit because all of a sudden, John Colby's grabbing a hold of him. He says, right before they said, "Come on over here, boss. Can you come over here a minute?" And he's like, "What is it, John? What is it? Come over here." And then he grabs hold of him, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Holy crap! What
I'm
is he?"
proud of him in his happy place.
Yeah, and he's just like, Paul's like, "Oh, he's going backwards." Like, you're like, "I don't know exactly what's going on here." If you
Yeah,
were watching this movie blindly and
yeah.
hadn't read the story or anything like that, you might be thinking, what in the heck kind of movie is this?" But then we see this more and more throughout the movie, that after John puts his hands on somebody and takes whatever the sickness is or an infection or whatever he takes out of them, it comes out of his mouth like
Yeah.
flying
Yeah, it
insects.
looks like little fireflies or something like that.
And he coughs and they come out. Um, and, Paul is like, "What did you do to me?" And so he goes home and he's feeling frisky. He comes home, moves his wife's hair to the side, and then, they go and have their romantic interlude. And, but it's romantic and it's kind of sexy and all of that. And then the next day, his Paul's wife has baked some cornbread and he brings some to John because John loves
Yeah,
homemade cornbread.
yeah.
And he says to Paul, he says, "Was your missus pleased?" And he said, "Oh yeah, she was
There's
pleased.
your cornbread. There's your payment.
She made you some cornbread."
Cornbread good. So here you go.
Right. So we don't want anybody to think that this movie is all doom and gloom and seriousness,
No.
because there are some
Mhm.
moments
It's
uh,
got
of
humor. Yeah,
levity.
yeah, it's got humor. It's endearing, but there is some really hard scenes in it. But yeah, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. Um, it does have humor. That's one of the good things about it.
And it does something else that not too many movies do. Some movies do, but not too many. I wish more of them dealt with this. And I think that's why this movie, for multiple reasons, but one of the big reasons why it resonates with me so much is because it deals with miracles.
Yes.
And anybody that watches this and doesn't come away saying they kind of believe in miracles, I don't know what to say, because this is a movie. I realize that it's not real, but to me, miracles do happen.
Yeah.
So John Coffey is a representation of somebody that can create miracles.
Yeah.
He's
He is
been
married.
blessed by God with this gift. And Stephen King has, over the years, given characters in his books gifts.
Yeah.
Now, Johnny Smith, for instance, in The Dead Zone, he after a car crash, a
Hmm.
horrific car crash, he comes out of a coma after 5 years to have this ability to, when he touches people,
Yeah.
he can know what's happened in the past. He can know what might happen if he doesn't
Hmm.
intervene. And so there's a line in that movie
Yeah.
where the sheriff says, if God has seen to bless you with this gift, I think you should use it. To which Johnny Smith, who's angry at the time, replies, bless me. He says, you want to know what God did for me? And this is coming from a man that is angry.
Yeah.
He's angry at his situation, therefore, he's angry at God, who he thinks put him in this position.
Yeah. Like a
He,
curse.
he says, he says, I'll tell you what God did for me. He said, he threw a Big Mac truck at me and bounced me into nowhere for 5 years. He said, yeah, God's been a real sport to me.
Hmm.
So over the years, Stephen King has incorporated miracles, gifts, whether people realize them as gifts or not, um, and all of these things. So I think Stephen King is a believer. I feel like that Stephen King is a believer in such things.
Yeah, and you even have to look at like characters like Carrie and Firestarter and stuff. They have gifts. Might not be gifts that not the typical gift, but they have gifts.
But they are gifts that end up protecting them to
Yes.
some extent. Um, but I don't know. I could talk about this movie for days on end
Yeah.
and probably not get to all the great things
Yeah.
about it. Um, Mr. Jingles. I
Yeah.
got to talk about Mr. Jingles here
Yeah.
because I love Mr. Jingles. If I had ever had a mouse as a pet after this, I would have named it Mr. Jingles.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. So
Yeah.
we are introduced to a little white mouse named Mr. Jingles,
Mm-hmm.
who Dale names Mr. Jingles. And he takes Mr. Jingles and keeps him in a little shoebox. And he's like, he when it gets close to his execution date, if I get a little serious here, he talks to Paul and some of the other guards about, will you take care of Mr. Jingles after, and they say, yes, Dale, we'll take care of him. And they talk about him being like a little circus mouse because he's so smart and stuff. And then what does that SOB
Oh,
Percy do
Percy.
to him? He stomps him.
I wish somebody would have done him that way.
He squashed him like well, something does end up happening to
Yeah.
Percy before the
Thankfully,
end.
not to be mean, but thankfully,
Yeah.
especially what
So
he does after told Edward.
whenever, because that scene happened so fast, you didn't even really
You
have
didn't even
time.
know it. Yeah, like
It's
first time
just
watching it,
she
you're
comes
like,
down on him, and
oh
I
my
was
God.
like, "Oh my God,
Because
this
you're
is
like, oh, how cute, it's sweet and it was, endearing. And then here all of a sudden, just bam. Like, why'd you have to do that?
yeah."
Why'd you have to
And
do that?
but the good thing is, and sorry, spoiler here,
Yeah.
but John asks them to bring Mr. Jingles over to him, and he brings the poor little mouse back to life, and it's just like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And there's a later scene where Paul is in the nursing home because
Yeah.
he's telling this all as his older self. He's talking about when he was younger and he was a guard. And so you see that Mr. Jingles is still
Yeah.
alive.
It was a miracle.
Everybody that gets cured
Yeah.
by John seems almost to live forever.
Yeah.
Normally a mouse wouldn't live that long.
Yeah.
But
Because I
there's
think,
Gray Mr. Jingles there.
yeah, they all are going to see death at one point, but their lives have been greatly extended and they don't know when they're going to die. So,
Hmm. Yeah, even Paul says, he outlived his lovely wife
yeah.
and all of that, but he knows that he still has a purpose.
Yeah.
And his purpose, I think, is to tell this story, to
Yeah.
tell John's story, um, which he does fantastically.
Yeah.
Um, but we are also introduced to, I can't remember, is he the warden of the prison or is he just like head of the guards or
Which character?
oh God, what was his name? What was
Was
his
it was it like James Cromwell?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah.
I think he's like the head of them. Pretty sure.
Okay.
The head lead, isn't he? I think so. I think he's like the head guard or whatever.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. But anyway, his wife Melinda, I think
Mhm.
is her name, is very sick with brain cancer.
Yeah.
And she's slowly starting to go downhill. It's affecting her. He says, my wife is cursing and saying words I've
Yeah.
never heard her say in my life. And it's because of the cancer that is taking over. And sometimes she knows her husband, sometimes she doesn't know him, sometimes she has good days, sometimes she has bad days. And they end up, again, spoiler alert, they end up kind of breaking John out of the prison so he can go, or they take him to the house where their boss is. And at first he's like, "What are you doing? You can't bring that prisoner in my house." And he's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And so they say, "We got to do this. We're going to help Melinda. So he's freaking out all over the place. But John finally goes upstairs to where Melinda is, and she's very, very ill. She's cursing like a sailor. She's saying all kinds of things. And John is able to take the cancer from her. But this is such a big thing that he has taken from her that he's coughing I mean, some of it comes out, but he's coughing all the way back to the prison.
Mhm.
So this is the part that mom does not, she's like, I can't watch no more of it. She watched it once all the way through.
Yeah.
She's like, I can't stand it, what they're going to do to John Coffey. And I did this when I was reading the books,
Yeah.
the little books that came out. I kept thinking, oh, y'all do something. Prevent him from being executed. Don't let.
Yeah.
But he tells them all, it's okay.
Yeah.
I know what my purpose is
Yeah.
now. And I have made my peace with things and I am ready.
Yeah.
So you guys go ahead and do what you're supposed to do. And one of the guards is just crying and Paul tells him, gotta quit that crying. You gotta quit that crying. We're supposed to be doing an execution here. And he's like, the guy's got tears streaming down his face and stuff. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen on film.
It is.
Uh, and the fact that John is so accepting of what's about to happen to him.
Yeah.
He served his purpose. He's ready to go meet God now.
'Cause I
And
think it was just really hard for him to live with the pain that he felt
I think
all
so
the
too.
time. It was just too much for him, and he just ready to have peace.
Mm. He even says, I feel it. I feel everybody's
Yeah.
pain.
That the world was so bad, that he just felt it all the time.
Hmm. So I will save you guys from, it's not real graphic, the execution's not, but the fact that
Yeah.
that what's going to happen to this poor man.
His wasn't as graphic as somebody else's. That was one
Yeah, yeah. There was, but
makes you mad. You get really mad with that one.
yes, and that was because of
Percy.
my language. Percy's dumbass that he had to do that, what he did. But to go back to Percy for a second, Percy does get his.
Oh yeah, and it's very satisfying.
Because basically, uh, old Sam Rockwell's character gets a hold of him.
Oh yeah.
Old Bill gets a hold of him. And guess where Percy ends up? He ends up at the mental hospital where he was going to be
Yeah.
somebody that worked there. No, he ended up going there to be a
Yeah.
resident. Um,
And
so
this Percy guy, he to just tell this, he thinks he's entitled because it's like the state senator's wife's
I don't know, his
nephew
uncle
or
or
something,
something. Yeah,
something like that. He
he
thinks he has
lords
to
it
be.
over them all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a big deal, and I got
Yeah. Thinks he has no
connections.
consequence for anything. That's why he was so mean to everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. So once again, I am going to have to give this one a 5,
Hmm.
and then I'm going to let Candace give her. I pretty much know what hers is going to be, but if she wants to add any additional comments about the movie, I know I blabbed a lot, but me, I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I give it a 5 too. I mean that easily in one of my top 20 favorite films of all time. I would think I could put it in the top 20 definitely. I just love it. I've always. I mean, I remember I used to watch it all the time. Like I don't know what it was about it, but it's like I just feel like watching The Green Mile, and I'd watch it sometimes days in a row, just
Mm.
because I don't know. It was just everything about it, and I love the book too. And the book, when it comes to the books are always kind of better than the movies, and just because they go in more detail about stuff. But with The Green Mile, the movie is so, I don't know, just well made, beautifully made, that there's something that always brings you back to it. So, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched it, a real long time since I've watched it actually. But you don't forget it. You don't forget what, the core of the movie is. Definitely one of Tom Hanks' best, I think.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And I don't know, Candace, do you have the ability to watch the 4Ks yet?
Not
Or
yet, no. I don't think. No, we may. Chris may have some way. I just don't know.
you just haven't told you. But if y'all do get to the point where you can watch 4K, I would definitely recommend this one on
Okay.
4K because it just looks amazing. Uh,
Oh, I say, yeah.
and yeah, so yeah, I have never talked to anybody that has not liked the Green Mile.
It's amazing.
And this just goes to show you that Stephen King can write something that's not hard. This might have horrific things in it, but it's not a horror movie.
Oh, yeah. And I would easily even put The Green Mile in probably my top 5 favorite Stephen King books. Definitely. I love it. I think that it's I don't know, some of his best work to me. I mean, a lot of people might, Might not put it that high, but I do. It's just one of my favorites. It's just something I love about it. Because you're going against a lot of things. When it comes to Stephen King, his you know, there's a lot there. But with the Green Mile, I think it's one of the best.
Definitely one of the best, and it's also, see, my mom can't watch the end of this anymore. She can't watch the end of Carrie anymore because she says she hates what happens to Carrie. And
Yeah,
I said, but mom, I said, you know, when you're dealing with a Stephen King,
yeah.
any kind of Stephen King material, there's going to be something that happens
Oh,
that
no,
you're
no.
not going to be too happy with.
Yeah. Now, Carrie is really up there for me in one of my favorite movies, horror movies. But the book it blows you away. There's so much more in the book.
Yeah.
So much more in that book. If you've never read Carrie, you're like, man, it goes in so much more detail than the
I
movie.
like the way it's written too,
Mhm.
where you've got it interspersed with magazine articles
Yeah,
and
yeah.
newspaper articles. And some people might not like that format, but I really enjoyed
I
that.
love it. I love Carrie. When I met Chris, I was super surprised um, because he had never seen Carrie. And we was talking about like our favorite horror movies and stuff like that. And Carrie is really up there, probably in my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. And he had never seen Carrie. I said, Chris, you've watched about everything. You've never seen Carrie. I've never seen Carrie. And I remember finally talking to him and sitting down and watching, and he was just like blown away. He's like, oh my God. I don't know why I had never. That was early on when we started dating, but finally got him to watch it. He's like, man, I gotta go read the book now.
Yeah, I think I actually saw the movie before I read the
Me
book.
too. Yeah.
And but now I try to read every book before I see the Stephen King
Yeah.
movie. I remember when The Stand was, we kept hearing that it was going to be a mini series, and I hurried up and finished. And this was the uncut version of The Stand.
Hmm.
This wasn't the original Stand that
Yeah.
came out that was truncated heavily. And I managed to finish it right, I think about a week before that miniseries came out, and I was like, "Oh wow,
That's a,
that was close."
that's another one I've never seen.
The Stand,
Yeah, that's another one Chris is trying to get me to watch. I said, I don't know why I've not seen it.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
think you'll like it if you ever get a chance
I've
to.
not read it either. That's one I've not read it as well. But yeah, I need to get on the ball with some of these.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that we had a few more people in here. Victor's in here. He says Tom Hanks' early work in Mazes and Monsters. Remember that one? I do. I do remember that one. That's a little oddity that I don't hear too many people talk about. That was one I found in the $5 bin at Walmart.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's these group of kids or young people, rather, I should say, who play a Dungeons and Dragons type of game.
Oh, I don't think I've seen it, but I think I've heard maybe Chris talk about it or something like that. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking. I've never seen it though.
And Tom Hanks's character kind of goes out there and doesn't come back.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing that I did not like about it was it seemed to be a little heavy handed,
Mm.
like going against people that play Dungeons and Dragons. Like, look what'll happen to you if you play these role playing games like this. You might go somewhere and never come back,
Was it
because
made during that era of
it
the
was, I think it was based on a book by a woman who wasn't fond of Dungeons and
yeah,
Dragons and stuff like that. And it seemed to be an indictment of that
there
type
was a
of
lot of that back then. With
people being fearful of
fear
what was going to
mongers.
happen to their kids playing these games. And so I remember that I shouldn't laugh about, but I remember near the end of Mazes and Monsters, all the other kids that had played this game went to see Tom Hanks's character, and he was just like sitting out on the grass with glazed over eyes. He didn't know them. I'm like, all right, the movie was okay, but it was just heavy handed. Is all. Yeah, Rona Jaffe. Yeah, she's the one that wrote the book. Thank you, Victor. Um, I was forgetting the author's name. Victor also says, "Love the Mouse and the Green Mile. That was some heartbreaking
Oh
stuff."
yeah, definitely, definitely.
And Blissful says, "This whole movie brings the extreme feels, mostly tears." Yes, it does. It depending on my mood and how my
Hmm.
emotions are, I will cry like a baby. And Blissful says, "Percy's a sleazy little man." Yes, yes,
Hmm.
he
It
is.
sure is.
Um, so I guess, Candace, do you have anything else you want to say about the
No,
Green Gnome?
I
Okay.
just love it. So
So I really want to get into the other movie, but I've been sitting here drinking soft drinks, and now I need to go to the restroom really bad. So, Candace, can you hold down the fort for?
I can. I don't really know what to say, but I'll I'll hold it
Candace will
down for
come
you.
up with something, I'm sure.
So, guys, here I am trying to hold down the fort for Dana. Anything anybody want to talk about to get me off the hook? Anybody got any favorite Tom Hanks movies? That's something I could talk about. Talk about the Burbs. I think my favorite Tom Hanks, well, I know it is. My favorite Tom Hanks film is The Burbs. That's a film that is very special to me. My grandpa, it was one of our movies that we would sit and watch all the time. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So, I mean, you got an awesome cast there. But the story around it is just, it's unique, And so that's a movie that I can go and watch all the time. What is my favorite movie is Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice has been my favorite movie as long as I can remember. I've probably watched it 1,000 times or more. When I was little, I would pack around a VHS copy of it so that if I went to somebody's house and they didn't have it, I could just pop it in their VHS player and watch. Toy Story, love Toy Story. Turner and Hooch used to be one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. Forrest Gump is always just that's one of his greatest movies, I think. Castaway. Went to the movies and watched both Forrest Gump, Toy Story, and Castaway. And I remember my brother, when he was little, and we would watch Castaway, the part where his leg gets like he's in the ocean and his leg gets sliced by that, like, I don't know if it's coral or sharp rocks or something like that. My brother almost passed out doing that. He has an aversion to like blood and stuff, and whenever it did that, I just remember he just got passed out, and my mom says, "You can't let him watch that anymore."
Oh, Turner and Hooch. There's a blast from the past.
That was one of my favorite movies when I was a little kid. I'd read it all the time. I loved it.
But that one makes me cry too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Anybody that is a dog or animal lover is gonna, probably cry
Yeah.
at that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, so I guess we'll get back into this last movie, and I know Candace says that she hasn't seen it, and I'm going to be going from explicit memory from many moons ago on this. So if there's somebody that has watched it more recently and I leave an important part of the puzzle out, feel free to jump in there in the chat and say, "Hey, but you forgot this, Dana." Um, so, first of all, I'd like to say if I had to pick my favorite adaptation of the short story Trucks, which this film is also called Trucks. But Maximum Overdrive did it first, and in my opinion, Maximum Overdrive did it best. Okay, because I don't remember having fun with Trucks, and I had a heck of a good time with Maximum Overdrive. Maximum Overdrive is a movie I remember first watching with my dad. I think we rented it, so it was. I think Maximum Overdrive came out what 85, 86, Candace.
Around 86 or so. I think that's the year I was born. Pretty sure. Could be wrong.
But so I'm pretty sure that I know I didn't go to the movies and see it. Now I have since saw Maximum Overdrive at the drive-in,
Oh,
which
that's
which
awesome.
was a lot of fun. And I can't remember. It was probably the Georgetown drive-in.
Yeah.
which is not very far from where
Oh,
me
I
and
would
Steve.
love that. I would love to see that at the drive-in.
It was fun. I mean, now I've seen the original Halloween at the drive-in. I've seen Maximum Overdrive. Um, I saw we went to the Skyline Drive-In up in
Mhm.
Indiana
Yeah.
and saw the Gates of Hell, and it seems like it was Evil Dead 2.
Oh
It
man,
may
that'd be
have been
awesome.
Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Gates of Hell. I know
Oh
there was some combination of
yeah,
those
I love the
movies.
drive-in. That's a dying, pastime. But to me, was my most favorite pastime growing up.
Mhm. But I got to tell this funny story about when we went to see Gates of Hell to drive-in. Now, Gates of Hell was a Lucio Fulci movie. It's a movie that I remember my parents, in particular my dad, talking about him and my mom going to see it. Probably they probably saw it when it came out, and they hadn't been married too awfully long because they got married in 74. I was born in 76. And Gates of Hell came out like what 1980 or 81 or so. Um, so they probably saw it first at the drive-in. But my dad talked for years about this movie where there were flying maggots. This guy got his head drilled, and I was like, "I'm missing the greatest horror movie ever made. That's the most awesome movie." So many years later, I was just looking around, just browsing around in a video rental store and found the big box of the Gates of Hell. I was like, that's that movie. It's like the Holy Grail. It's like, oh. If there could have been a golden light going around the box, that would have happened. So I was like, I got to rent this. I got to see this movie that my dad's been talking about for years. So I took it home and I watched it and I said, yes, this is the Holy Grail. This is Lucio Fulci is one of the greatest directors ever, like horror directors. So then years later, after me and Steve were married, that there came the opportunity to go to Skyline Drive-In and see it on a driving screen. I'm like, oh yes, finally, I'm going to see it like my parents saw it originally.
Yeah.
I was so excited, and we went to see it. And do you know Tim Gross?
Yeah.
Candace, okay. Kyle that hangs around with Tim and
Yeah.
did the show with him? Okay. So Tim wasn't at this, but Kyle happened to be at the Skyline drive-in the same night me and Steve were there, and we were parked right here. Kyle was over here with a friend of his watching it.
Hmm.
And he got to the scene where there was supposed to be the Bob head drill scene.
Yeah.
All of us were waiting, and we were waiting for it to happen right there on the big screen. I don't know what happened, but evidently this print was missing the Bob head drill scene.
It was
And
edited.
it skipped and then replayed the same pull up to the funeral home scene. And I'm like, what the heck?
What
What?
in the world?
And so about that time, like I think Kyle opened his car door or truck door, whatever he's in, and stood out and he said, "Do you believe this shit?" He said, "Where's the Bob Hadrill scene?" I said, "I have no idea, Kyle." So I had to put that little story, and that was the
You
fun.
guys got gypped.
We got Jim. We didn't get to see the Bob Hadrill scene. I was like, "What the heck?" I looked at Steve too. I was like, "Can you believe that?" And he's like, "You know how Steve is." Um, so anyway, but getting back to trucks and Maximum Overdrive. So Maximum Overdrive holds a lot of nostalgia for me because of it was the 80s.
Yeah.
I was watching this with my dad. I watched a lot of horror movies with my mom too because my mom was a bigger horror fan than my dad.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but my mom used to watch all the slasher films and all that. She'd watch the Friday the 13th. She never really got into the Nightmare on Elm Street, but Friday the 13th and stuff like that, yeah. She was into vampire films and all that. I credit her with instilling that love of horror in me. I
Yeah.
don't think if I hadn't had parents that spent a lot of time at the drive-in when they were young, that took me and my brother when we were very young. My brother was a baby a lot of
Yeah.
times, and they would take us to the drive-in. And I remember the beginning of prom night. I remember parts of Death Ship and all of that. And I think, some people might have said, well, that probably scarred you. That's what's wrong with you now, Dana. You were subjected to all that stuff when you were growing up. But no,
I had the aunt that did. My mom and dad wasn't.
well, my aunt Sandy was like that. I watched a ton of horror
Oh
movies
yeah,
with her.
everything. Every night we'd be watching something. So, and that's why I miss the video rental stores and stuff like that so much. Is because
I do
that was
too.
part of the fun, was going and picking these movies. I know it's so much easier with these streaming sites and stuff, but just going there and just picking out these movies that were, the looking at the box art. You get creeped out when you're walking into the horror section. You're scared. You're little and you're scared, but you're
And you're excited too. And
that will never be another thing that
no, because it started to go away when the red box stuff, because
yeah,
all you would do is, like, maybe I'm wrong on this because I don't think I've ever gotten a movie out of a red box. But what I saw was they would have a little picture of it, but they
yeah.
didn't have a box you could hold in your hand. You couldn't flip
No,
it over and look at it and see all the
no.
cool pictures and stuff
And
like that.
a lot of these films, whether horror or not, you bought them a lot of the times blindly,
Yeah.
and you would buy them because of the art
Mm,
and you would read about it, and just that was part of the fun. Is this going to be a stinker? Is this going to
yeah.
be
And
just
I got some
amazing?
stinkers. We could have a whole show about the
I
stinkers.
mean, the box art would look awesome as you take it home. He's like, "What is this?" It has nothing to do with what the box art is.
No, and did you ever notice, Candace, that sometimes on the box art, when it gave the plot synopsis for a movie, it didn't even tell you what the movie's about. It was so off base of what the movie was. I'm like,
Yeah,
who wrote this?
uh, just
Somebody
trying to
that
get
didn't
you
see
in there to get it.
the I saw that with, I don't know if you've seen the movie House of Death,
I
um,
think so. Yeah.
or Death Screams. That's the other
Mhm.
title for it. But I remember having the VHS. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Um, but what's TJ saying? TJ just popped in here. He says Dana likes some of the stinkers and gives them fives. LOL. Hi guys.
Hi, TJ.
Hello, TJ. Yeah, I know. Some movies that people think are god awful. I
Some of
would
these
give five
stinkers are just so stinky, they're good,
right.
right?
Yeah, exactly right. So what was I talking about before I sneezed? I got good lord.
Dana, with minding your memory,
I went to sneeze and then I focused on what TJ was talking about. Now I've
you
lost
better
my
than ask me because my memory is here and gone.
Does anybody, if anybody remembers what I was talking about before I sneezed,
You was talking about the like the VHS stuff,
we were talking about the rental stores, but it seemed like I had some store somewhere I was going with this.
As me and that Dana, our memories just go woo sometimes.
See, this is what happens when you get older. Victor said I was talking about the red box. Well, yeah, do you remember I was saying the red box doesn't have the same effect on me
No,
as
no.
actually holding a
Mm-mm.
physical copy. Oh, Batman says, read in the box to see if
Yeah, that was it.
the stinkers or not. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Got me back on track. People are going to think I'm nuts. But I sneeze and part of my brain must have come out when
Yeah.
I sneeze because I can't remember what I was talking about. Um, so, yeah. Oh, I was talking about Death Screams and House of
Oh
Death.
yeah.
The the back of that VHS box, I read it and it talked about, a kid that was left out of the festivities is now cutting up childhood friends to ribbons. And it's like, but when you watch the movie, that's not what that movie's about. It's like, who wrote it? Again, who wrote it? It obviously was not somebody that had watched the film. Um, Gates of Hell gets 5 deadites, Victor. Well, yeah, I'd give it 5 deadites out of 5. I definitely would do that. Batman says Tom Hanks' little brother James does some Sheriff Woody
Hmm.
voice work mainly for shorts and video games. That's cool.
Yeah, I found that out the other day. I didn't even realize he had a brother that did that kind of thing.
Batman says, did you guys see the new era of Kiss? I haven't.
Yeah, about
Okay.
the is it like a hologram thing? Not holograms, but like the whatever you call it, avatars.
Oh, Avatar. I was going to say, is it like an AI Kiss or
Yeah,
something like that?
uh, it doesn't surprise me. Now, Kiss is one of my favorite bands, but I feel like I could say this is. It doesn't surprise me because look what all Kiss has put out, like condoms and coffins and they put out everything. So why not?
Speaking of condoms, though, Steve got me the soundtrack to Prom Night on vinyl when it came out. And one of the things that came in that set was a condom. And, I haven't opened it up or anything. I just keep it in the album sleeve. But
Yeah,
it's just a funny little thing that, that they stuck in there because, yeah, technically that is something that a lot of people would need on prom night because of the extracurricular activities
yeah,
going on
definitely.
after prom. Uh, I didn't participate in those extracurricular activities, but I had friends that did. I
I
had a
didn't go to proms. So.
I went to prom my senior year of high school because I thought that I would be missing something from my life on down the road. I'm here to tell you, you ain't missing nothing if you don't go to prom.
I
But
said I'm too cool for prom. I'm too rock and
that's
roll
what
for
I
prom.
should have said. I shouldn't have wasted my time. So we ended up going to prom, and I went stag, and most the rest of my group of friends went stag, except for one of us. She had a boyfriend. She had a date for this event, and they let us go to the Y for our prom after party. And my friend and her boyfriend disappeared within the Y for over an hour. And the adults came around, the chaperones and stuff, and said,
Hmm.
"Do you know where so and so is?" Nope, we ain't seen them for about an hour. I don't know if they ever got found, but we all knew what they were doing. But that's my story about prom. I didn't get any action, but evidently somebody was. But
I was asked. I was just like, no, I don't think I'm going to
oh, well,
go.
that's sweet that you were asked, though, even if you didn't go. But getting back to trucks and maximum overdrive, I got way off topic, but that's some of the fun of doing these things. Is sometimes we get off on
Oh
little
yeah,
tangents and talk about other stuff. Um, so trucks for me was just like, I think it was a letdown because I'd already seen Maximum Overdrive, and this just was not fun. Like I said, it was not fun. Timothy Busfield, he's okay, but if I remember correctly, he was the main guy in trucks.
yeah,
And it just seemed to be, from my memory, it seemed to be like a paint by numbers.
yeah,
They didn't do anything special with it. There really was no humor in it for me. Whereas Maximum Overdrive had so many humorous things in it, in addition to the horrific things happening
yeah,
on it. And, you know, Yeardley or Yeardley Smith, I love her. I love her. Um, and some people were annoyed by her voice because she's so Candace all the time in the movie, and but I still love her. I loved her in The Legend of Billie Jean also, where she played Putter Jack, and I just love that whole movie, and to see it kinda, I don't wanna say dumbed down, but to see it taken such a dark direction without any levity at all, and without that fantastic, AC/DC soundtrack, which
Yeah,
I listened to part of my Who Made Who album today, and I was like, "Boy, this sounds good," and it's like it kinda made okay, it's Yardley.
Yardley.
Yardley, okay.
Yardley.
TJ's my pronunciation person. He will let me know if I pronounce things wrong. Um, Batman, you say, "I love her annoying voice, especially 'cause I imagine Lisa in her movies." That's right. Um, but thank you, TJ, for correcting me on that. I'll try to remember. I've called her Yardley Smith
Oh,
for years, you know. And I would never wanna offend her. I've watched her do interviews and stuff like that, and I love watching her, give an interview too. She may There may be an interview with her on that Maximum Overdrive, the newest one that I got in. But, so basically, paint by the numbers thing, it just took stuff straight from the story and put it into a movie. That's all I really can tell you about it.
it just
And
don't have the same pizzazz as Maximum
right.
Overdrive. I would expect. I've never seen it. I would like to watch it just to be watching it, just to see how it compares. But I just don't see anything being better than Maximum. And ACDC, I'm gonna be like, I'll be lying if I said this wasn't true. But ACDC, just been a huge fan that I am.
Mhm.
Um, adds to it, adds to
Yeah.
the charm of the movie. So maybe I'm biased. I don't
And
know.
well, the way the songs are placed in the movie too are it's dead on. It just fits.
Fits it. It really does. Yeah.
Mhm. I
And it
mean,
just gives it so much more badass appeal to it.
yeah, badass. Yeah,
Just
it's like
badass.
um you're like, yeah, these people mean business that are
Mhm.
making this movie. They want you to have a good
Yeah.
time.
Then you have that big old Green Goblin, which is such an iconic,
Oh my
image.
gosh, yes.
So, that makes it even more, amazing to me. So I don't know. I watched it as a kid, and see, my dad never liked horror movies or anything, but this was a film that he loved.
Yeah.
So it was one I could enjoy with him. And so I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so we probably both had memories of watching it
Hmm.
with our dad, or
Yeah.
having those similar memories. Yes, Victor, Trucks was a made for TV version, which is good that you bring that up because they couldn't necessarily do things on TV that they could do in a movie that was
Yeah.
made to be released theatrically. There's just no way. Um, and what other movie other than Maximum Overdrive? And I shouldn't be laughing at this, but can you see a steamroller rolling over a little league player?
Yeah, that's that's the point there. Which I love that scene. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. It presents it in a way that it's just I don't know. It's funny. I don't know if it's supposed to been funny, but it is. And I've read the Stephen King. I think he was embarrassed by it because it didn't do well. You
Right.
know, with the box office and all that stuff, and people crapped on it and all this stuff. But I think it's brilliant. I mean, not brilliant in a way where you're like, oh, this is the Green Mile, but it's brilliant in the
Right.
way that it is. It's I don't know. It's not really cheesy, but it borders that. You know what I mean? Plus, you got this awesome soundtrack that's more than awesome. Then
Mhm.
you have this plot with this comet, and I love that. I love that
Right.
aspect of it. So, I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm a little biased because it's something I grew up with, and I love ACDC. So maybe I'm just biased. I don't know.
Well, and AC/DC is an awesome band, in my opinion, and Candace's opinion. And for them to agree to
Yeah.
allow their music to be used
Yeah.
on this it says a lot about Stephen
Yeah.
King, for
Well,
one
I
thing.
think it's his favorite band is AC/DC.
I believe
So,
so, yeah.
could you imagine like your favorite band? Like the Beatles is my favorite band. Let's say that Paul McCartney, I made a movie, and Paul
Yeah.
McCartney was like, "Yeah, go ahead and go ahead and use,
I'll do the music for your
yeah,
movie.
we'll do music for you." I mean, that would be epic. So,
Yeah.
see, I
And
don't want to see these people who don't like it.
if John Lennon was still alive,
Hmm.
if he said, "Yeah, you want to make a movie? I'll do all the songs for you," or if all the Beatles were still around and they agreed to do music for you, I mean, what a way to bring the all the Beatles back together.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
some of these movies that don't do well at the box office are some of your best movies for different reasons. They can be just crazy, silly little movies, but those are the ones that are most fun. You
mm,
know, those are the ones that you remember the most, I think.
right, and there's a big reason why we're talking more about maximum overdrive than we are trucks. Is trucks for me, being as I have seen it, it's just been a while, is the inferior film. If you
Yeah,
want to see something that has heart, that has humor, that has a kick-ass soundtrack,
as
uh,
Emilio Estevez.
as Emilio Estevez, yeah, we can't forget Emilio Estevez because
No.
this is in a time when that man was hot.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't care what you say. And we got some of the guys probably in the chat groaning right now saying, "Oh God, we're going to talk about Emilio Estevez."
Emilio. Put some not the Roxbury's little.
Well, and Emilio is like, he's extra hot in this movie because,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
he has that scene where it doesn't show a lot
Yeah.
with that with Laura Harrington,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Man, that's pretty steamy, and it's not even showing a lot."
Yeah.
You just know what they had been doing. You knew what the characters had been doing, and even the part where they're just sitting there eating the cookies or whatever
Yeah.
they're eating, and they're talking afterwards. Um, I don't know. It just adds a lot to a film that's already
I
a
agree.
lot of fun.
I
Uh,
do. And I love these films that have to do with like these big trucks, like the one with Dennis Weaver. Is it Duel?
Duel, yeah.
I love Duel. Because
What
here
about Joyride? Do you like Joyride?
you God, it's been so long since I've seen it. But it's been so long that since I've seen it, I think I've only watched it like once. Now, Duel was one that I've watched multiple times.
Yeah,
My dad really loved Duel. But from what I remember, I did like it. But Duel was one because my dad was a huge Gunsmoke fan. So
yeah,
he got Chester from Gunsmoke, and and I love it because a lot of it is him. You're hearing his thoughts, and he's like thinking, but you can hear what he's saying. Because this, you've seen Duel, right?
yeah.
And got this truck with this unknown. I mean, you're
Mhm.
thinking there's somebody in there. You can see that there's somebody in there, but are they supernatural? Are they
Yeah.
just a person, or what's going on? I guess it really doesn't clarify. It's
I
probably a
think
person.
at one point, are you maybe thinking maybe it's death coming for
Yeah,
Weaver's character?
it feels like that. It's like this is it was played out well. That's a good movie. I really like that, and I like movies like that. Um, but with Maximum Overdrive, there's nobody in these vehicles. These machines are alive, and they're you know which is played off by the comment thing. So you're like, this is just it's unique.
Mhm.
It is. It's a unique plot, I think.
And the fear you see on Dennis Weaver's face
Yeah.
when he
Sweet.
realizes he can't escape this, whatever
Mhm.
it is, and Yeah, and Victor, you are correct. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Duel was very, very early
Hmm.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that the supernatural, like the thought of the supernatural, which I know that's probably not what they're trying to say with Duel, but the thought enters your mind or it didn't mine because the truck always finds him no matter where he goes. And
mhm.
that kind of plays on what you said, like with what is it death? Because what human can do that? And I think that's what makes Duel a really good movie. It's really intense. So
Mhm.
making me want to go. Might have to have a double feature with Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, that'd be an excellent double feature, I think.
Mhm.
Oh, TJ, you had to bring this up, didn't you? He says, "Wonder what evil that eclipse today brought to the world." Well, I hope no evil. I had a fleeting thought about that because I was thinking about Maximum Overdrive. Maximum Overdrive was about a
Yeah.
comet passing through the atmosphere, and it causes all the machines to go crazy. Um, So, I guess somebody could, if they haven't already, came up with a story about something ripping through time and space because of the
Gosh.
eclipse or, any number
Or
of things. I
something
hope
else.
nothing real happened like that. So nothing punched through from the other side. But I haven't given my rating for trucks, and I know Candace won't be able to give one because. But I'll tell you what, I will let you do, Candace, since you weren't on here when I was talking about Maximum Overdrive originally. You
Okay.
can give your rating for Maximum Overdrive, but unfortunately, I am going to have to give trucks only a two. Um, yeah, it just wasn't up to snuff, mainly because I kept comparing it to Maximum Overdrive, which I'm going to turn that one over to Candace to give a rating and mention anything else she wants to mention about it.
Hmm. I could jump on the train and give it a 5. But, because it is one of my favorites. But
Hmm.
I'm going to give it a 4. Not because of how I like it, but because I want to be fair with the scale. So I give it a 4, but it's definitely it's one of my favorites no matter what. I'll give it a 4. I think a 4 is good for that movie.
I'm I agree with that. I can't remember if I gave it a 4 or 5.
Like in my mind, I'm saying give it a 5 because I like it that much. But I think a 4 is solid because it's not one of my favorite ACDC albums. Too,
Mhm.
I'm looking at that as well. Soundtrack
Right.
wise.
That's
But
good to give an
so
overall rating.
I'll give it a 4. If you had that, I'd give it 4.5. But you don't have those, so
I need to get a half because everybody's wanting to give halves, and I haven't got off my lazy butt and did the halves yet. TJ says, by the way, the full stand 1994 is on YouTube in pretty good quality if Candace wants to watch it.
I
So
will. I think we have it here on something. I know Chris has probably got it, but if not, I can definitely. I need to watch it. I really do.
I got a funny story about that miniseries. So about the time I got it on Blu-ray, COVID hit really
Ooh.
bad. And then I could not bring myself to watch it because I was like,
Yeah.
it was early in COVID and we didn't know where this thing was going to
Ooh.
go. And I was just like, I don't know, I can't.
That would be a scary thing to watch during COVID.
Yeah.
Seems
I
to me
did,
like it would.
I did watch something. What was it? I shouldn't have, Candace, because it freaked me out. I think it may have been called Pandemic.
Ooh.
And oh my gosh, it freaked me out because a lot of it almost seemed to mirror what was going on with
Yeah.
COVID at the time. I was like, but it was one of those things I couldn't turn it off. I had to watch it to the end. And yeah, the Sand remake came out during COVID. Maybe that's why I don't like that Sand. No, I don't like that Sand remake just because I just don't think it's good at all. The 1994 one, yeah, that's the one to watch. I'm not saying you're crazy if you like that remake, but it just didn't do it for me.
I was already paranoid enough during COVID, so I didn't need anything to make me even more paranoid.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely. I don't know why I watched that other movie when I wouldn't rewatch The Stand until after COVID eased up a little bit, and then I watched my Blu-ray. But Blissful says, I had a really good time watching the eclipse today. I did too, even though I didn't get to see a lot of it because of how cloudy it was.
It was
Candace got
cloudy.
some really cool pictures, though. I saw her.
Yeah, we got to see it. And I tell you, Dana, right before it reaches like maximum coverage is when the clouds came. And we
Yeah,
didn't get to see it, but we got to see it right before it did. But I'm going to step to the bathroom real quick. I'm going to mute myself and I'll be right back, okay?
okay. So I'll keep you guys entertained till Candace gets back because I got something I want to bring up with her actually on here. Um, but if anybody has any questions that they want to ask me while I'm on here by myself, um, I'll be glad to. I'll be glad to answer them. Oh wow! So Blissful, you had a perfect day for the eclipse. You know, they say the next time that'll be one that good will be 2044, and I'll be 68 years old if I'm still living. Steve says, "Well, I'll be dead." And I was like, "Steve, don't say stuff like that." He said, "Well, you know, I'm telling the truth, but I wish the weather had been better, but I did get to see part of it, so you know, it wasn't a total loss." So
Sorry about that.
it's okay, Candace. We all gotta, you know, take our breaks when we can take them.
Just sipping on that drink. I probably shouldn't have.
Well, I'm always sipping on something when we do these streams. Blissful says the Stain remake. I made it halfway through the first episode. I didn't care for it, and actually, a lot of people didn't care for it. And you know, I wish that I'd liked it better. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg played Mother Abigail, and she did a great job. But Ruby Dee, who played Mother Abigail in the 1994 version, just knocked it out of the ballpark. And I just, after that, I couldn't imagine anybody but Ruby Dee playing Mother Abigail. But now that Candace is back, before we tie things up, I wanted to bring up the fact that Candace and I have been playing some kind of verbal volleyball, trying to figure out, you know, something. Not that Candace has been pushing back on anything I brought up. It's just that I keep going over with her what my plans are for future things. Now, as I said yesterday, I think it was whenever I did the whole watch alongs canceled thing, I mentioned that Jay has said that he's going to take a break for a little bit from streams on my channel, and that's okay. Um, but in the event that he's not doing midday with Dana and Jay with me, I wanted to kind of put something. Hey, Blair, I wanted to put something in that time slot so that people wouldn't be, oh, suddenly they're left without any show at 1 o'clock on Fridays. um so I was volleying around ideas in my head of a title of something I could do with Candace, because Candace is great on here. I think y'all all would agree with that, and she's
I'm
getting
not very
more.
entertaining, but
Oh,
I try
yeah.
to do my best.
and and she's getting her feet wet, and I think she's getting more comfortable of coming on camera now, and she enjoyed, I think she enjoyed tonight, and she
Oh yeah, definitely.
enjoyed the watch along for Hard Days Night that we did and all that. um but what I came up with, And it's not as snappy as Midday with Dana and Jay. I know that, but that was just something that it just fell into place. Jay's name and Midday, and it just fit. And I have to give credit where credit is due. CK came up with that name of the show. I did not. I did not come up with that. But I did come up with Friday Foolish with Dana and Candace, because not that we're going to be foolish on there, but just that we're going to talk about a bunch of different
Yeah.
things on there. And so this may become a permanent fixture on the channel. I would like to see it become a permanent fixture on the channel. If Jay wants to keep doing Midday with Dana and Jay, me and Candace might be able to, uh, do it at another point in time. Like maybe every other week, I could do Friday Foolish,
Yeah.
and then I could switch off with the Terror Time Tea, and we could do it earlier in the day, and then still be able to do the midday show.
Hmm.
And you guys would get all kinds of, entertainment. But in the event that Jay doesn't want to do it anymore, then of course you can't have a midday with Dana and Jay without Jay. So Candace has graciously agreed to be the person that mans the Friday schedule.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I would.
Um, so I just wanted to put that out there for everybody and let everybody know what my thought process. Because some people might have been thinking, well, if Jay's going to be taking a break, what the heck? What are you going to do on Fridays? The Terror Time Tea for one thing, but also I just wanted to let y'all know that we have something in place, and I'm hoping that Candace will be able to join me for more of these streams
Oh,
as
yeah.
she can. I'm trying to get a actual typed up schedule to send to Candace so she knows these are the movies I'm covering. This is what day I'm covering them and all that.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there unless the creek rises up or something for the multiplicity. Me and Chris both will for that one because that's one of our favorites. And
Yeah,
I've been talking to you about that for a long time. I wouldn't want to miss that one.
yeah.
Definitely. But like I told you, even movies that I've never seen, if you
Uh-huh.
meet on there, I'll come and watch them. From a first time viewer type perspective.
Well, if you want to be on, would you be interested in? I'm going to put Candace on the spot here while she's on camera with me. She'll be like, "Well, gee, Dana, I could say no. You got me on camera here." But I was wondering if you'd want to be on the Everybody Wants England tomorrow night,
Yeah, yeah. I'm concerned.
because
Unless
let's
something
see.
happens, and I'll let you know. But I don't have any plans as of now.
Okay, so again, what I'll be covering tomorrow night, what my plan is: Phantom of the Opera from
Mhm.
1989. Adventures of a Ford Fairlane from 1990. I want to talk briefly. This is a blink and you'll miss him appearance in Chud 2, but I do want to talk about it. And also, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare from 1991.
Yeah.
That 3D extravaganza, which actually wasn't a 3D extravaganza, and I was kind of pissed off at that, but that's beside the point. And Freddy's Dead ought to be a fun one to talk
Yeah.
about too. Um, so hopefully Candace will be able to join me
Oh,
for that one.
like I said, if nothing comes up, I'll be there.
Okay.
I'll let you know though.
Victor says TGIF with Dana and Candace. That's a good one too. I don't know if TGIF is something that's copyrighted or anything.
No.
Um, because I remember TGI Fridays. Anybody remember TGI Fridays?
Mm,
And you remember on television they always had the those sitcoms. There were certain sitcoms, Full House and all of
yeah.
that on Fridays, and we'd all sit down as a family and watch
Hmm.
that.
Family Matters, all that good stuff.
Family Matters, Step by Step, I think
Yeah.
was one of them, and um, yeah.
Good days,
Could
Dana.
go, yeah, man, that was the days when I didn't worry about nothing. Uh, And I don't know if was Perfect Strangers ever part of that lineup.
I don't know. Perfect. I remember Perfect Strangers being Only time I seen Perfect Strangers was early. I'm talking about like 90, 91, whenever it come out. Because
Right.
that was, I remember watching that before I'd go to school or whatever, and I was in love with, what's his name? Uh, Balky?
Valky, yeah.
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 That's
Yeah.
what I've watched in so long. I
I
was
mean,
in
I liked
love.
Mark Lynn Baker too,
Yeah.
Cousin Larry. Cousin Larry. I can't do it like Valky, but
They released it
Bronson,
on DVD, right? I need to get that. That's one I
yeah, they
bought.
at least some of them are out on DVD. But Bronson Pinchot, he was the one that played Valky. And
Yeah.
did you ever see? You've watched Risky Business, right?
Yeah.
I liked his character in that. But you just fell in love with him as Valky.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody that didn't fall in love with
I
Valky.
remember I used to watch that all the time in the morning whenever it come on, but then I never seen it on Syndicate after that. It might have been, but I don't remember it growing up.
And it's weird because here's the thing that happened with those DVD releases. I remember, I think it was the first and second season came out around Easter. Like it's been years and years because I was still living with my parents then,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought it, and then you didn't see any more seasons come out, and I was like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I started seeing them pop up, but the third season I got, the Warner Archive collection put it out. I'm like,
Huh.
why did the Warner Archive collection put this out?
Well, see, they was something weird, and they later on might have put out the rest of the seasons. I don't know if you remember the series from the '90s with Joey Lawrence, Blossom.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love
So
that.
I was really big into buying the TV box sets because, and I'm surprised that I missed the Perfect Stranger one because I'm sure if I would have seen that one out, I would have bought it. So me and my dad, that was something we'd always do, is we would buy all of them. I mean, Bewitched, Maritime Horror Show, every one of them that come out, we would get from the classic TV lineup or in the '90s or whatever. But we bought Blossom, or I did. I bought Blossom, and that first season ends on a cliffhanger. And they
Mm,
just never put out any more. Now they may have later on,
right.
but I'm like, where's the rest of these series? I mean, it's just like they put it out one season and they just ended it. They tried to do that with the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I'll tell you what they tried to do with that. And all the fans that was buying these DVDs actually like wrote whoever distributed it,
Mm-hmm.
and because they had put however many seasons, I should know because it's like one of my favorite shows. However many seasons of the Mary Tyler Moore Show there is, and there's a bunch of them. They put every single one of them out. Dana, it got to the last series, the last season.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to release it by itself. They wanted to release it in a box set when everybody had spent all it. And you remember how much those DVDs were? They're like 40
Yes.
bucks at the time.
Yeah.
They wanted to release it in a box set when everybody else has spent all this money on all these individual box, or, box sets, these seasons. And people like banded together. I'll never forget this, and like petitioned it until they released the last season on. But how about that? I mean, who would want? Who would
Yeah,
want?
they waited until the last season. Like, oops, you're gonna have to get a box set to get this.
Yeah,
That's silly.
I remember that. That's back whenever I was doing the monkey stuff, and everybody was so mad, and like I was like putting like big old banners up, sign these petitions, do this because I want my Mary Tyler Moore Show. I want the last season. You don't want to buy all these box sets and then, I mean, all these season individual sets and, just release it as a box set to begin with. That's stupid.
But speaking of Mary Tyler Moore, that made me think of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
It's one of my favorites too.
And I gotta ask you, Candace, since I have you on here, one of my favorite episodes, if it looks like a walnut,
Yeah.
that
Mary comes out there, or what's her name in the Laura?
Laura, yeah.
Kills it with all those walnuts or whatever.
And the whole thing about them go like that, I can't do it like they did, but
I love that episode. Now,
and Danny Kaye comes walking in there, and
yeah.
he's poor like, and he says, he says, "Who do you think I look like?" He says to Robin, he says, "Danny Thomas." He says, what is a Danny Thomas? And I just laugh and laugh.
Oh my gosh.
That's got to be my all-time favorite Dick Van Dyke episode.
There's 2 episodes that is just, I don't know which one is my favorite. And right now, off the top of my head, I cannot think of the titles of them. But the first one is when Rob goes and oh my God, Jerry is out of town. And it's like at a dentist convention or whatever, and Rob needs work done. So he goes to another dentist. And then whenever Jerry comes back, he's afraid to let him, because he's wanting to do a checkup on Rob. And he's wanting him to look in his mouth, and Rob's like, I don't want him to look in my mouth, because he felt like he betrayed him. So whenever he goes there, he's trying every way in the world to not let Jerry into his mouth. And when he does, he just like spreads his mouth open and is like talking with his tongue. He says, just look at it. Just look at it. Do you remember that episode?
I think so.
I'll have to send it to you, Dana, because that is hilarious. It's one of my favorite. I can't believe it's escaped my mind. But the other episode is where they go to this like cabin. Like all of them go. And it's like haunted. Like they see the man in the mirror.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I'll have to send them to you, because I mean, this is like my top 5 favorite shows of all time is the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's probably my second favorite show. Well, about third. I think my favorite is I Love Lucy, then probably the Andy Griffith Show, and then probably Dick Van Dyke Show.
My mom, I have to credit my mom with getting me into a lot of that stuff, because this is stuff she grew up on, or when her and Dad first got married, there was stuff on that she was watching, and something I never really got into deeply, but Mom talked about was Dark Shadows.
I love Dark Shadows. I grew up with Dark Shadows.
Mom kept telling me it's like a vampire soap opera. That was what she described it as. And so I always wanted to watch it, but I just never sat down and watched it. Victor says I love Mary Tyler Moore and Carol Burnett.
I love Carol Burnett, yeah.
Burnett, yeah. Also Lucille Ball, talented lady.
I love Lucy. When I went, are you a big Lucy fan, Dana?
Yeah.
When we went to Jamestown, because that was a surprise to me, whenever Chris proposed to me up at the Monroeville Mall, he's like we had it planned, but I wasn't for sure if that's where we were going. And he's like, we're going to see Lucy's hometown. So I was like, this is my dream. So we went, and it was amazing. It's just one of the greatest times of my life going there. We got to visit her grave and just going and visiting the museum and seeing all that. If you ever have the chance to go to Jamestown, if you're ever up in that area and you're a fan of Lucy, go. It's beautiful. It's like a postcard town. Just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember y'all's pictures, and I remember now here's something you can tell. Y'all may have already told Noah about this, but this is something you can tell your grandkids about too. When Noah gets married and has you some grandkids, and you can tell them, you know where Grandpa proposed to Grandma at
in front of the JCPenney's before it was tore down, because Chris's favorite horror film is Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
And we actually went up there on the guise of a Rob Zombie concert. And I was like, why are we going so far away for a Rob Zombie concert? But he's like, well, I want to visit the Monroeville Mall. And then we went to the Night of the Living Dead location too.
Yeah.
And visit all that. But he set me down in front of the JCPenney's, and there was talks of it getting ready to get tore down. And there he goes. I was like, oh my God.
I thought it was so sweet though.
Oh, it was. I mean, I'm thinking, is this happening to me? Is he actually planned all this out? And come to find out, he planned all this stuff out, and it took me to Jamestown to see Lucy stuff. So it was a dream. It's like I picked the lottery here today.
And it does feel, when you're proposed to, and I'm not trying to be hokey or anything, gang, when you're proposed to, it is a very surreal thing, because I kind of, like Candace, I kind of had a feeling that about the time that Steve was going to propose. And so what he did was, I think he intended to wait. I think he was gonna wait later, and then evidently he must have got really nervous or really excited or combination of the 2 or something, but he did it earlier, and he was like he, took one of my Christmas gifts, and he actually got down on one knee. If y'all I wish y'all could have seen it. I wish we had had somebody there that could have taken a picture of that, because that's probably the first and last time you'll ever see Steve down on one knee like that. And I remember him, opening the box and saying, "Will you marry me?" Of course, I said yes automatically. I didn't even have to think about it for half a second or anything. And I remember him telling me that I was worth so much more than what he paid for that ring.
Oh, sweet.
And that meant more to me than him even giving me the ring. But the ring was, I'm going to tell a sweet sentimental story here. The ring was my engagement ring, which I don't know if y'all can see that real good or not, but the one with the diamond on it is my engagement ring. And it was too big, it would fall off my
Mine
finger.
was too.
Steve, bless his heart, he guessed on the size. So I had to have it resized. So I couldn't even wear it and I was just,
Same.
I gotta get it resized because I want to wear this
Yeah.
thing. But, that's my sweet little story about getting
Now,
proposed to.
with Chris, I know when we went to the mall, okay, so he was acting nervous around each um like the bridge over the
Mhm.
pond there that's in the. He was just actually kind of nervous, and I kept on seeing him kind of rubbing his legs. I was like I guess the ring was in his pocket, and but you're not thinking that.
Mhm.
I'm like, are you okay? I just thought that he was just nervous because he's getting to see all this stuff. And so, like the escalator, he's kind of acting a little nervous. And
Mhm.
so he said, well, let's go up to the JCPenney. So we go up there and we sit down on this bench in front of it. And I see him kind of like acting nervous. And he's like looking. And then all of a sudden, I see his hand go into his pocket. And I'm still not thinking anything, but I'm thinking he's acting strange.
Mhm.
And so he gets down on his knee, and I'm like, oh, it's like everything in me just went like, woo, because I knew then what he was doing. And
Yeah.
when he was proposing to me, there's these guys, this group of guys coming up on this escalator, seeing it, and they started, whoa, and they started yelling and started filming us. So apparently, there's a film out there. So
Oh my goodness.
this little vendor that was sitting out in front of the J.C. Penney's there, who sold these little crystals that had like a little string, those little ornaments, came over to us after that and said that he was touched by what he had seen, and he
Mhm.
wanted to give us our first engagement gift. So I still have that little heart crystal that he gave me, and me and Chris. And Chris says, he said, that was so nice. I said, I know, but I was still floating. But yeah, that was, I mean, that's something you're never going to forget, no matter where it is, whether it's
Mhm.
in the backyard. It's just the fact that somebody loves you enough to do that.
Mhm. And I know there were people around when Candace got proposed to, but to me, at that moment, it doesn't matter if it's just you and the other person or
Yeah,
there's 50,000 people around you. All that matters in that moment is you and the person proposing to you.
exactly. Because you don't even hear any those
Mhm.
whenever those guys, because they were being really loud and really they was really close. I wasn't paying any attention to them because we were just so in the moment, I guess,
Mhm.
of what was happening. He's like, then come to find out later, he was like, I was just really nervous because I didn't know where I was going. I was just trying to find
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. He was trying to find
the.
just the right
And
place.
then he said, I almost, because before that, the night before was the Rob Zombie concert. And he's like, you're lucky because I almost did it at the concert. I was
Mm,
like, well, I'm glad that you chose where you did because I think it was perfect. And
yeah.
then we come back home. I'm going to tell this because it's the truth. No idea. A week later, we find we're pregnant. So there's my story.
Yeah.
And a
So
lot of people was like, "You're pregnant?" Oh, he knew. I was like, "No, we did not know."
no, no, it don't always happen that way, folks. Um, but that was just a little bonus thing, you know. Sometimes you get little bonus things here and there. But um, TJ says, "I don't know if we'll ever do this, TJ. That's a lot of episodes." He said we could do Dark Shadows, 1,225
Oh my
episodes,
gosh. Whew. That
and
keep you busy.
yeah, we'd be like we'd be doing this, and me and TJ'd be about dead, and we're on episode 1,000 or whatever. We'd be with our canes and stuff. Um, Blissel says, I agree, Victor. Carol Burnett is my favorite. And
Yeah.
speaking of Carol Burnett, she wasn't on all the episodes of Mama's Family, but I used to love Mama's
I love
Family
it.
as well.
I love Mama's Family.
Uh, Batman says Laverne and Shirley. I love Laverne and
Yeah,
Shirley. Sadly, we don't have Laverne. We don't have Shirley no more.
I
Um,
love Penny Marshall.
yeah.
Always did. I love her in when she's in what's it called? Oh my gosh. This shows my brain. Now Danny, you know I do this a lot. Stuff
I
I
do
get
it
off
too
you,
much.
you know, the three witches. I know this, you know, hocus pocus.
Hocus Pocus, yeah. But
And Gary
yeah, I
Marshall.
yeah, we've lost so many very talented people.
I'm a very nostalgic person. I like the older stuff. Before I met Chris, I was very I'm the 50s, 60s, 70s. That's what I like. 80s. I liked all the classic shows. I didn't want to expand. And I remember him saying, "You got to watch The Office. You know, you have to." I was like, "I don't want to watch that. I'm a classic fan. You know, that's what I love, classic movies." But he opened my eyes, and then I fell in love with The Office, and now it's one of my favorite shows of all time. And it just opened my eyes. It's like, hey, you're kind of just staying in the past. You need to kind of expand your horizon of what you're watching. So I'm glad that I've opened up, and now I watch.
there are a few bright spots over the years, but the thing about sitcoms is, and Steve and I have a difference of opinion on sitcoms. He says I don't like sitcoms anymore.
I love them.
And I have box set after box set, just like Candace was talking about. I have all the seasons of Roseanne, even though the ninth season, I let me pick on Roseanne here for a little bit, just for a little bit. I love the original run of Roseanne.
Mhm.
I did. And I was upset. I know that Roseanne didn't have any business saying some of the stuff she did,
Oh
but
yeah,
how they handled it by taking her off her own show, making her go, I think that just killed that show.
yeah.
And I know there's the Connors now, and people say it's good, and I have no doubt that it's good. But whenever they said they were going to bring Roseanne back, I was so excited
Yeah, me too.
because I don't think and some people blame Roseanne for that, for the way the last season was. I've heard her blame
Yeah,
not her. I know she was a producer, but she blames people up above her for how that turned out. But anyway, whose ever fault it was, the ninth season faltered terribly.
yeah. I mean, it has its points.
Hmm.
It's so out there, though. I mean, like Jim Varney's in it. He's in the ninth season, right? As
I
that prince that
think
comes
so. I think, yeah.
and he starts dating Jackie. He's like a prince, and he comes there, and I think that's the ninth season.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff from them winning the lottery to,
That's where it kind of started going, you know. And yeah, that's the ninth season, right? When they win the lottery. So that's whenever Jim Varney comes in play.
mhm.
I mean, I don't hate it, but I hate the ending. I I hate. I think. I mean, it's just it's. And I hated when Dan went. And I know it all was, I don't want to give it away in case somebody's never seen it, but I hate when Dan what he did to Roseanne. I just
And
thought,
he had to see, that was something that, like, I was talking to my mom about it one day. If you watch the early seasons of Roseanne, like, let's say the first 3 seasons or so,
yeah,
especially the first season, you see the interaction between Dan and Roseanne,
yeah,
and he's saying, there was one scene where a friend of theirs had gotten a divorce.
hmm,
And he says, to Roseanne, he's clearly worried that Roseanne might leave him.
yeah,
And she says, I'm not leaving you, Dan. I love you. And you could see the love between them.
yeah,
And all of a sudden, his mom is sick. He goes
yeah.
out to California, has an affair with her nurse. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, Chris, because Chris loves Roseanne, and I love Roseanne too, but Chris really loves Roseanne. That's like one of his favorite shows. It might be his favorite show. Like I'm not sure. I can't remember. But we've discussed this so many times. I mean, it's just I'm like the beauty of that show was really the relationship between Dan and Roseanne. I love Dan. I
Mhm.
thought his character was just I don't know. They were real. That was
Well, they were real, exactly.
right.
Mhm.
It was real. And then that just ninth season come out, and it was just like, where is this going? I mean, there were some fun parts about it. I'm not going to say I hate every part about it, but it was a deep, a wound I think to that whole series.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't refuse to watch the last uh season of that. I don't
And
blame them.
something else that bothered me, I don't know if all this, I think this was revealed before the ninth season, but for instance, Dan's mother, his mother and father had gotten divorced.
Yeah.
And you knew that they were estranged, that was a given. But as the series moved along, Dan started talking about his mother was in the mental hospital
Yeah.
several times and that his dad was never there and all this stuff. I was like, where the heck did this come from?
Because Ned Beatty played his dad,
Mhm.
and I loved Dan's dad, and it just I don't know, it just was so weird. I don't know. It's just like I can watch it if I wanted to, but I don't know. I think you probably feel the same way, and probably a lot of people do. It's like where were they going with this? I mean, what were they thinking? I mean, did the writers even care? At this
And the other thing was Jackie and Roseanne's dad.
Yeah.
The mom was always flighty and kind of
Yeah.
crazy and stuff. But their father, when he was actually shown on there, was oh, what is his name? I want to say it was Randolph was his last name.
Can't remember, Dana. You want me to look it
He played Clark. He also played Clark's father on Christmas Vacation.
up? Oh, let me look here, Dana. I know the guy. Let me.
And I always liked that guy too. So,
Yeah,
but
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Chris is in here now, Candace. He says the last Roseanne season sucks ass. Plain
Oh,
and
Chris. Yeah, that's a big
words,
talking point for him. So,
yeah. He says words can't express how much I hate it.
yeah. Oh, we talk about that. We've talked about that a lot.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels
No,
that way.
you're definitely not. Let's see. What was that guy's name? Come on, I know it. Any other time I could find this right.
Yeah. So why?
Randolph.
Okay, I was right about the
Yeah,
last thing. Then.
and I
Uh,
love that guy.
yeah, and okay. So when he was shown as their dad, and he and Bev would come and visit with them and stuff like that. He always just seemed to be the funny guy, He'd say, "Pull my finger" or something, and they played that joke out and stuff.
Yeah.
But then. all of a sudden you didn't see John Randolph anymore. And they only talked about their dad, and there was talk of the dad abused them. He used the belt on them.
Yeah.
Then there
Which
was that whole episode where
back into
Roseanne
town.
almost abuses DJ for
Mhm.
taking off in the car, and there's like,
Yeah,
and TJ says Roseanne said her
yeah,
real dad abused her, and that's why it ended up on the
yeah.
show.
I've heard that. I've heard
But
that.
it just didn't make sense though in the storyline because he went from being a regular
Uh-oh.
dad who was
Yeah.
kind of silly to an abusive.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
might have been okay if they introduced him that way at first, but to
Yeah. It kind of it puts a damper on the other episodes that he was on.
and then they had, and I know they have to work real world things in there, but
Mhm.
and I'm not saying this was a bad episode, but like the fourth or fifth season, and Jackie had had a lot of boyfriends over the years, and this is when she was dating Fisher. Do you remember the character
Yeah. Oh
Fisher?
yeah.
And they actually, I think them two were married
They
in
might have
real life.
been. Oh, the characters. I mean the real people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actors, yeah.
And there was the whole thing about she started dating Fisher. Fisher was a younger man, and Roseanne didn't like that at first. And then as it moved on, we found out that Fisher was beating on Jackie. And so I don't know how to feel about that episode. Yeah, those kind of things happen, but
I understand a lot of these shows, a lot of the sitcom shows. I mean, you go look at Full House or Family Matters or anything,
they all deal with some.
all deal with these kind of things one way or another. Difficult things like look at the Fresh Prince. Whenever Will goes into a great performance of
Mm.
talking about his dad. I mean, stuff gets heavy sometimes, so I can see it. But that Fisher, you really hated him.
Yeah, I wanted to beat him up alongside Roseanne. I mean,
It's like I said, I understand that these sitcoms and stuff like that deal with these deep subjects sometimes, and when it does, it comes you're like, but I like the episode, but it's not one of my favorites. You know,
mm. Chris says, one of my favorite Roseanne moments is when Dan beats the shit out of Fisher and they arrest him and Roseanne sticks a chicken leg in Dan's mouth.
yeah,
Yeah, Fisher was season 5, TJ.
yeah.
Okay. Well, gang, it has been fun, but it is after 10 now, and probably Candace going to have to get some rest. I know I'm going to have to get some rest. But we could probably, if Candace wants to, stay on here a couple more minutes till
Oh yeah.
10:15, in case there's anything anybody wants to bring up or ask or anything like that. And I'm sure I'll bother Candace after we're off screen and talk to her about stuff because we talk every day
Oh yeah.
usually.
I've enjoyed talking about these TV series though, Dang. That's something I really like talking about. I don't know why, but
Well, I mean, maybe me, you, and TJ could do like a sitcom
yeah.
related one if TJ wants to be in on that. Because it seems like people in the chat are getting into talking about, you know, Roseanne and some of the
I
different.
love all that 90s stuff, 80s, even 80s and 70s, 60s,
I,
50s stuff.
TJ says sure. So I tell you what, when we finish up the creep show stuff, and Candace, you can come on the creep show stuff
Mhm.
if you want to as well. Um, we'll do a sitcom, and I'll get together with Candace and TJ
It
and
sounds
see
good.
what we can come up
I
with.
could talk all day about that stuff. It is something I know about.
I mean, we can do Roseanne, or if anybody's got any other ideas about different
Mhm.
ones that we can do. I don't need an excuse to go back and watch Roseanne episodes, but hey,
Me and Chris has watched it all the way through. This is just since we've been married, probably a good 10, 12 times.
see, but Steve won't watch that stuff with me because he's like, "Yeah, I don't like sitcoms anymore." Well, I'm like, "Phooey on you, then." You don't watch these sitcoms.
I love them. always stick something on at night. Like right now, it's an Andy Griffith show. I watch it every night.
I used to, I'll be honest, I used to be a person that made fun of Andy Griffith because my mom would watch it. But then I, s- I took a chance and I sat down and I watched a few episodes and I like that show now.
Chris used to hate it because of his dad. To me, it was always one of my favorites. And Chris, when I first met him, he hated it. And he just got used to me watching. He's like, I think I just hated this because my dad wouldn't let me watch TV sometimes because he wanted to watch the Andy Griffith show.
Oh, yeah, they kind of put a damper on Andy Griffith.
So he loves it. He sees the greatness of it. I love Andy Griffith, and if you ever, even if you don't like Andy Griffith, the Mount Airy, North Carolina, is an amazing place to go and visit. Our kids loved it. My kids, my son and my nephew, they even loved it. Which my son is a fan. He likes the Andy Griffith show. But I don't know. It's probably my second favorite show of all time. It's just I love everything about it. Even the colored episodes. Some people hate it whenever Barney leaves, but I love even after he's gone. So
Don Knotts, speaking of Barney, Don Knotts, I absolutely
love
adore
him.
that man.
He was a genius, I thought.
Mhm. I even liked him as Mr. Furley on Three's Company. I mean,
Yeah.
I, I could- how could you not like that? He wasn't the first. The Ropers were the first,
Yeah,
but
I love
then
the
Mr.
Ropers
Furley
too.
was second.
Now,
Um,
do you like him in The Ghost of Mr. Chicken?
yes, I do, but I need to go back and
Oh my God.
rewatch that again.
That's one of my favorites. I think he plays the nervous guy.
Because he's
He,
about like Abbott and Costello when they get the
yes.
monsters and stuff. Some
Yeah.
of those reactions.
Yeah. And we love Epic Costello. That's something
I
that
do too. Steve got me really, really into Abbott
hmm
Costello, and the Raimis got me interested in the Three
I
Stooges.
grew up with the Three Stooges. I grew up with Abbott and Costello. I grew up with Andy Griffith, all that stuff. I grew up with. I just loved it. Nobody forced it on me. It was just something that I took interest in always. And the Incredible Mr. Limpet, I love that. I love.
Yeah, yeah. I need to go back and rewatch that one too. Uh, Now, Victor says, this has been an excellent stream, you guys. Great positive energy.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Thank you, Victor. Appreciate that. Victor's been kind of, I mean, I don't know if he's been in the background and just now started chatting. I can't remember. But these last few streams, I've noticed Victor's been showing up. TJ says Ghost and Abbott Elementary are pretty funny. They're new shows. And
Oh yeah, I started Ghosts. I need to go and revisit that because I liked what I've seen of that. I've not seen Abbott Elementary though. I've seen the previews though, but I like Victor's profile picture. It looks like it's Kolchak, the Night
well, I
Stalker.
believe it is. Which, speaking of that, I love Darren McGavin for one.
Yeah,
Yeah, but now that I'm focusing on it, yeah,
that's what it looks like.
back to the Night
You don't
Stalker.
see a lot of people. I talked to Chris about that a couple of years ago. I think it was. I don't think he had ever seen it.
Oh,
And he's like, oh yeah, I don't think I've ever watched it, and he liked it. But I think it was Chris. Could have been him or my brother. I get sometimes mixed up. But you don't really see a lot of people talk about Kolchak. And
no, and that was something my mom remembers watching, but I never really watched it until I got with Steve. Steve
yeah,
loves it.
what about Night Gallery? Have you ever seen it, Diane?
Night Gallery's good. Ray Bradbury Theater's good.
Mhm.
The old Twilight Zone episodes, the
Oh,
old Twilight Zone episodes, and the '80s Twilight Zones.
yeah,
Uh,
I love them.
Tales
That's
from the Dark Side,
mhm.
Tales from the Crypt. Me and TJ have done a lot of these.
Oh
We
yeah.
talked about them. But gang, it's getting ever later, and like I said, I could talk about this stuff all night. TJ says Dan Curtis, who made Dark Shadows, did Kojak.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. Dan Curtis did a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess we'll try to tie this up, and
I've had fun.
it has definitely been fun, and we went on for a little over 2 hours, and kept everybody interested for that long. And I want to thank Candace for coming on
Thank
here.
you.
And it's a shame that Uncle Bill couldn't come on with us and Chris couldn't come on with us because Chris had to watch what, Monday Night Raw. So he was on.
For WrestleMania, it's because it's the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. So
Yeah. So we're
thank
going to give
you.
Chris a hard time. You should have been on here with us, Chris.
Yeah.
But he did come in at the end in the chat, so that was good. Um, but I want to also thank everybody that was in the chat with us. Uh, kept us straight on how to pronounce names. Thank you, TJ. I appreciate that as always. And I'm not being sarcastic. I do appreciate. Um, Good
Chris.
night, Batman. And Chris says, I have to stay loyal to Cody Rhodes.
My gosh.
What would happen if you didn't stay loyal to Cody Rhodes on it? TJ says, good night, y'all. By the way, is Jake on from all the streams? Well, TJ, here's the thing. He told me and he told the public at large via the Dead Pit Facebook page that he was taking a break from streams on my channel. So I'm only to assume that that means all streams unless he tells me different. Which I have to respect Jay's decision on that. And so I hope that everybody understands and that I don't lose a lot of subscribers because Jay is not on here. Look, I had Candace on here. Candace is a wonderful uh, person to talk to
Thank
and
you.
to discuss these things with. And, Candace is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet
Oh,
in your entire life. Um,
thank you.
Everybody has bad days, but Candace is one truly. She's been a great friend to me for many, many years,
Same with you.
and we've known each other for many, many years now. Seen each other at conventions, spent time together,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so it only seemed a natural thing to ask Candace to be on here with me on things. So please, everybody, make Candace feel welcome on here. Everybody did a wonderful job tonight. Uh, I saw some post flash up, and I don't know if it was directed towards me. It was on Facebook that said, "Bring back Jenny." Which Jenny is a very nice person. I've never met her in real life, but she was the original one half of the original Seductive Poison show. And I've been wanting to get her on for Seductive Poison the Resurgence, but we just, you know, I don't know who put that. I don't know what it was in reference to, but it made me think of Jenny and me doing the Seductive Poison shows. She's a very good friend as well, but her schedule and my schedule just haven't found a way of meshing so that we can get together to do something. But in the event that she can do something, I will be sure to let you guys know about that. But stay tuned tomorrow night for Everybody Wants England at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, I remember that
On the
song,
two tone.
and I remember Dead Pit doing a song for Jenny. They did a song for Miko as well, but everybody remembers Miko, right? That are old school.
You
Dead.
said that, and my dog, he lifted up his.
Oh, I forgot about that. Candace has a dog with that name. I bet he thought, well, she's talking about
He's
me.
not talking to you, Miko.
No, I'm actually talking about Miko Macabre, if anybody remembers Miko Macabre. And she used to do kind of a Elvira type thing on YouTube back in the day. But anyway, I've got to go to the restroom again, so I'm going to.
I have had a great time.
I
I
am
may
so
not have been the most knowledgeable person or talkative person, but I've really enjoyed myself.
You did really well, Candace, and I'm looking forward to you being on tomorrow night. But if something happens, just let
Yeah,
me.
I'll let you know. I'll definitely let you know.
TJ says Miko's probably a nun now. Oh, Lord, I hope not. I hope she didn't go that extreme. But nothing wrong with nuns, mind you. I'm
I
just saying.
almost became one. I think I've
You
talked.
know, there were days when I thought about it when, when I was a teenager and stuff,
Yeah,
my upper teens and stuff.
I'm glad
But
I got talked out of that. Just like,
I'm glad I talked myself out of that. But anyway, we're going to skedaddle on out of here for tonight. And we'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So good night, Candace.
night, Dana. Good night, chat.
Good night, chat. And we'll see everybody next time.